In this lesson, we are going to learn how to calculate the number of rows that will turn out in our Waling band according to the length of our weavers, and where to place the joins in a Waling band in order to get a specific number of rows. In addition to that, we are going to learn how to weave Waling bands in square and oval baskets in a more calculated, advanced way. We are only going to look at your classic starting from tip wedding bands, and perhaps I will just briefly mention bottom bands that begin from thick. The first part of this lesson is going to be theoretical, and after that I will demonstrate how these things work in practice. Before we begin, why will we even want to think about that, and in which situations will we use it? The first reason is practical. I may find out that, suppose I'm making a rather large basket with rather long, stout rods, and I may find out that the length of weavers that I'm working with are only going to produce around 3 rows, or between 3 and 4 rows for the bottom band. And I might say to myself, right, this clearly isn't enough. Those are very long and strong rods, and those measly 3 rounds here are not going to hold them properly. I may also find out that, suppose this is a rending section here, and I'm making a Waling band and I want to make another small rending section. But I find out that the weavers that I have are going to turn out 6 rows of weave here, and I might say to myself, that's too much weight. I don't need this many rows here in my Waling band. In other instances, I may want more rows for the top band, because I want to make the whole structure of the basket stronger. I might feel that it's not strong enough. The second reason is aesthetics. I may design my basket so that I know precisely how many rounds of weave I want for each of my Waling bands, and I actually do that many times. I may have a vision of how I want to design my basket, and I know I want 3 rows here and single rounds here, and perhaps 5 rounds for the top end. How do we calculate the number of rounds that will turn out from our weavers? Well, the first step will be to measure our weavers against the basket. I myself like to think in terms of quarters, but actually for this purpose it's not very important. Having done that, we are going to take the number that we got and multiply by 4. Why 4? Because essentially we have 4 sets of weavers, right? I have these points here represent a stake. One group start from this stake, say a group of 3, and one group starts from this stake. So that's 2 sets, and to these sets we are going to join 2 additional sets. So that's 4 overall. So let's say our weavers make precisely 1 round around the basket. We're going to write that down as 1, right? In this case, our unit of measurement is rounds times 4. That gives us 4 rounds. Our Waling band is going to have 4 rows. Suppose we have 3 quarters. Suppose this group goes all the way, finishes here, and we join here at 3 quarters. Let's write it down as 0.75 times 4. That's 3 rows. what if we have something in between? Let's say I'm estimating the length at 0.85 rounds times 4, that's almost 3.5 rounds, right? 3.4 rounds. What if I have more than 1 rounds? Suppose the weavers go all the way around and another quarter. I'm going to write it down as 1.25 times 4. That's going to be 5 rounds. Now, what are we doing with this information? Well, first of all, we may measure some rods against the base even before soaking in order to choose the length of weavers that suits us best. But obviously we're not always going to do that. We may also find out that the weavers that suits us in terms of length don't really suit us in terms of thickness. So what do we do? In case the weavers are too short and are not going to produce enough rows, we can add more sets, right? Instead of working with just 2 sets, starting from here and here, we may want to work with 3 sets of weavers, or perhaps 4. Let's make another circle right here. Perfect circle. Now, suppose we're at a 24 stake basket. Instead of dividing the stakes into 2 groups of 12, we can divide the stakes into 3 groups of 8s, starting at 3 points. And that way, if we want to calculate it, we will simply have to multiply by 6 instead of 4, because now essentially we have 6 groups. In case the weavers are too long and are going to give us more rows than what we actually want, we are simply going to make the join before we get to the end of the rod. Essentially, we're going to cut the rods short. Now, you might say that this is wasteful, but to me personally, the look of the basket will many times be much more important than using my materials efficiently. So let's now look at how to weave Waling bands with a specific number of rows that we want. In this case, I find that it's most comfortable to think in terms of quarters. Now I'm going to make a chart which you can write down to yourselves, and as I'll go over this chart, I will also explain the technicality of how these things actually work. As I said earlier, whenever we work with 2 sets, we multiply by 4, because essentially we have 4 sets of weavers like the ones that we've measured against the basket. So let's first look at 1 round. To make just 1 row in our Waling band, we need to join at 1/4 of the length. If I start from here, I should join here and then finish here, precisely above where the next group starts. But this is something that we're not going to do, because 1 round we're going to make, as I taught you, to make single round Waling bands. This is something different. So let's just erase that first one here. Now for 2 rounds of weave, we need to make the join precisely at the half point. Now this one group starts from here, behind this stake, right? One group starts from here. This group, let's draw 3 weavers, alright? This group will finish here, right above this group, and this will give us 2 rows of weave overall. For 3 rows of weave, we're going to need to join at 3/4 of the way. If I start from here with this group, I'm going to go over the next group and join here. Then the rest of the set is going to go from here to here. That's going to give us 3 rows. Let's now think in terms of stakes. Suppose we have a 32 stake basket. We're dividing it into 2 groups, right? We want to know when where we start the 2 sets across from each other. So we're dividing it into 2 groups of 16. One group starts here at this stake and finishes here, right here. This stake here will be stake 16. And another group of 16 will start from this one and finish here. 2 groups of 16 stakes give us 32 stakes. So if we want to join at 3/4 of the way, we have to divide the basket into 4. And that means that we divide it into 4 groups of 8, right? So this group that starts here is going to go over the other group and we'll start here. We'll join here first, right? Like that. An easy way to count that will be, I know that I started behind this stake, right? So I can just count backwards 8 stakes. This will be, I will start from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is a group of 8, right? From here to here. This is a group of 8. So 3/4 means that I make the first join right here on this stake. Now, it's important to understand how to begin and how to make the join. First of all, many times the weavers are not going to be precisely of the same length. So I make sure that they start from the same place, precisely at the butt end, and then I like to trim them so that they will be precisely of the same length. And also, many times I don't like to begin my Waling bands from really, really thin. So I might trim at something like that, where the weavers have some meat on them. Now, suppose I got to 3/4 here, and here I should make the first join, and I have a lot of weavers left. Suppose I have something like this from here left. I have very long weavers, but I want to make the join here because I want 3 rounds. Now, the new weavers that I'm going to introduce, if I'm going to introduce them, I'm going to insert them right from the butt ends, then they're going to be too long. We make our calculation based on the fact that all of the weavers are of the same length. So if the first group finishes here and I have this much left, that means that when I take the second group, I will do something like that, and this is the length that I will cut off from the second group. I will cut this butt end off, perhaps a little bit less, perhaps something like this. I will cut off, and I will begin from here, not from here, right? And that way, my Waling band will be precisely 3 rounds. Now, this might not be very important to you. Maybe you want somewhere in between 3 and 4 rounds, and this is okay for you. But we're talking about how to get an accurate number of rows. Now, if we want 4 rows, we're going to join precisely at 1 round. Starting from here, going precisely 1 round, and right above where I started with the 3 tip ends, I'm going to join the butt end. This will give me 4 rows. If I want 5 rows, 1 1/4, right? Going all the way around, joining here. 6 rows, that's 1.5 rounds. Going around and a half. Now let's look at how to use 3 groups or 4 groups in case our weavers are too short to give us the amount of rows that we want. Working with 3 sets of weavers means that we are multiplying by 6, right? We have 3 tip ends groups, and then we join 3 groups with butt ends. That's 6 groups overall. Now suppose our weavers are very short, only a quarter of the basket short, then the entire thickness of our band is going to be 1.5 round. Still not great. We might in this case prefer to use 4 sets or do something else entirely, but this is for a different lesson. Now in this case, since the weavers are quite short, I may want to, and we're working with 3 sets, I may want to think in terms of thirds also. It could be very comfortable. So if I find out that the weavers are third of the basket, then I'm starting from 3 points and I'm going to get 2 rows. If they are half the basket, or if I want to make the join half the basket, I'm going to get 3 rows. Now how does this work here? Precisely the same as before. But here, the number of stakes of the basket will not always be divided by 3. It will always be divided by 2, but not by 3. So if it's a 24 stake basket, we can divide into 3 groups of 8. We don't have a problem, right? One set begins from here, from this point, and finishes here, right? This will be a group of 8, and then this one finishes here, another group of 8, and this one will finish here. 3 groups of 8. But suppose this is a 32 stake basket, we can divide it into 3. So we can simply use 2 groups of 11 and 1 group of 10, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, no one's going to be able to tell. So we can use it on basket with numbers of stakes that don't divide by 3, and we continue like this, multiplying by 6. 2/3 long weavers give us 4 rows, 3/4 long weavers give us 4.5 rows, and a full round of weavers will give us 6 rows. When we get to 4 sets, we need to multiply by 8. But when we get to 4 sets, there are several different things that we can do with this. Let's just begin first from the numbers. If I start with 4 groups, and they're very short, they're only doing a quarter of the basket, then I'm going to have 2 rounds. If they're going to third, once again here, because the weavers are quite short, I may want to think in terms of thirds, because I want to use the entire length of my weavers. They're already short. So if there are 2/3, I would not want to cut them at 1/4, right? I would prefer to use the entire length. So that's going to give us a little more than 2.5 rounds. If the weavers are half the basket, that's 4 rounds. 2/3, that's a little more than 5 rounds. 3/4, that's 6 rounds. And 1 multiplied by 8, that's 8 rounds of weave. But when we talk about 4 sets, I would actually prefer not to divide the basket into 4 groups, not to divide the stakes into 4 groups like this. Start from here, 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 and here. I can do this, and it can work out fine, but the problem with this is that I'm going to have joins at more places in the basket. I would prefer to have less joins, because joins don't look good. So one thing that I can do is to simply finish one Waling band and then start another separate Waling band with just 2 sets. It's going to be the same thing, the same number of rows. But I can also, and this might look better I think, I can also start with 4 sets like this. As I think I said it before. 1 set from here, 1 set from here, and then another set will start right over this first set. Suppose we've woven, we got about to this point, not yet covered the beginning of the second row. I will now add the second set right above where I started this first set. Now, since these are tip ends, this will not look so bad. And also many times you can tuck the tip ends into the weave. So I will have 2 groups starting from here and 2 groups starting from here. And I think this might look the best in terms of the thickness of the rows of the Waling band, and in terms of where the joins are, because the joins then are only going to be in 2 places and not in 4 places. When talking about square and oval work, these calculations are more than just a way to create a specific number of rows in our bands. It is, for me at least, the best way to make Waling bands. I'm going to talk about how to use the length of the weavers that we have in the best way, that is to make the most of it. But you can also use the chart that I'm going to fill out soon to know how to get a specific number of rows. It's the same thing. Now, in square and oval work, I completely changed the way I think. Instead of thinking in terms of rounds, 1.75 rounds, I will prefer to think in terms of sides. These baskets will have 4 sides. And I will always place the joins right here in the middle of the shorter side, you might say. This is a rectangular. I will prefer the joins to be here, right in the middle of here. If you have side handles, they will usually be here, and I will want the joins to be underneath them. If you have a middle handle, will be here, and I will want still want the joins in the sides. This is because when you are presenting an oval or rectangular work, and when you're appreciating such a basket, you're usually looking at it like this, right? You're not looking at an oval basket, like you're not taking a picture of an oval basket like this, and you're not appreciating it like this, presenting it like this. So I would prefer it if this whole side will be completely free of joins, and the joins will be here. So that is the difference. Now, when we're talking about weaver length, this is quite different, as I said. I will always think of the weaver length in terms of sides and a half, because this half will be half of this side, because I always make the join right here at the middle. So whenever I write 0.5, that means half of the shorter side. Now the work will always begin from the left side of one of the sides, either from here, right, like this, or from here, 1, 2, 3, and at the other side. I will prefer not to start in the middle, right? This will not look as good. So let's say my weavers are quite short. They are only, I can begin them from here, and I can only get to here, 2 sides, right? I will write that down as 1.5 for our purposes, because I will not finish here, right? I will finish right here in the middle. So we got this side and a half. This 0.5 will always be half a side. And what this means essentially is that the first group will give me this, and then I will join and I will get to here. So the first set is going to give me one row here. That's one row here, and one row here. And here it's not going to give me anything really. And the second set is going to start from here, right? It's going to give me 1, 1, and 1. So what we're going to get here is 2 rows in the longer sides and 1 row in the shorter side. But this 1 row will be the thickest. So the thickness of the Waling band all around will be equal, or pretty much equal. If it's not perfectly equal, you can wrap it down a little more strongly at some points. So we're going to get 1 row at the I'm calling this, I'm always calling the long part the middle. So we're going to get 2 rounds here, 2 rows here, and 1 row here. This is quite different than what we did before, because here the number of rows is not the same. Here and here we're going to have different number of rows. Now let's erase that and see what happens if we have 2.5 rounds, 2.5 sides, that is 2.5. Since I always want the joint to be here, I will then start my Waling band from the shorter side, right? I know where to start because I know where I want my join. If my weavers do this and a little more, then I will start from here. One group will start from here and one group at the other side. And it will make 2 sides and a half side. Once again, I will join at the half of this side. So I'll begin from here in order to get the joins where I want them. So this group is going to give me 1, 2 and a half, and then the second group that I join to it is going to be the half and 1 and 2. So what I'm going to get here is 2 rows here and 1 rows anywhere else. And the second group is going to give me 2 rows here and 1, 1, 1. So what we're going to get here is 2 rows in the middle and 3 rows in the sides. But once again, the thickness of the 2 rows here and the 3 rows here should be equal, or more or less equal. This is how you do it. Don't worry about it being at, not at the same height. It's going to be the same height because here the 2 rows that we're going to have here are going to be thicker than the 3 rows that we're going to have here, and it's going to even itself out. So what if we have, let's erase those lines here. What if we have 3.5 sides? 3.5. That will mean that I will start from here, right? Because 3 sides, it's 1, 2, 3 sides and a half. And then I get the joints precisely where I want to get them. So one group starts from here, second group starts from here. Now this group is going to give me, this is going to be the complete opposite of this. This group is going to give me, well, I join here, and then half, and then 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to get 2, 2, and 2 rounds, and then only 1 row here. And then the second set is going to give me 2, 2, and 2, and 1 row here. So I'm going to have, in this case, more rows in the middle than in the sides. But once again, the thickness of these rows will be the same. Even though it's 3 and 4, it's going to be the same thickness. Now, what if I have 4.5 rounds? In this case, I actually make more than one round. I will start from, let's try to clean up this mess a little bit. Alright, I will start from here. I will go all the way around, right? That's 4 sides. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all the way around. And I'm going to join here at the half point. That's the 0.5. So I'm going to get, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be 1. And I'm going to have 3, 2, and 2. And everywhere else, and the second set will be 3, 2, 2, and 2, I think. So we're going to get 4 rows of weave here and 5 rows of weave here at the side. I think most of the times the weavers are not going to be longer than this, but if you wish to know how many rows you're going to get, you can try to calculate like I did here, but most of the times you don't really need to calculate. When I'm making a whaling band, I'm not always calculating how many rows that's going to be. I'm just making it so that the join will be here. So all you have to know really is where to begin your 2 sets in order to get the joint here, right? So if I have 5.5 sides, I'm going to start here because it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at the half of this. Once again, if the weavers are too short for me and are not going to give me enough rows, I can work with more sets of weavers. But in this case, I will not work with 3 sets because how do I place those 3 sets on baskets with 4 sides, right? So I will either work with 2 sets or 4 sets. But once again, when I work with 4 sets, I will probably prefer not to start my 4 sets from all 4 sides. I will prefer to start them at the same point as I've shown before. If I started one group here, then one set, then the second set will start right above it. And another 2 sets will start from here. First, let's see how many rows we're going to get from the length of our weavers. So I'll take a few. You could just take one really. Beginning from here. I'm not going to begin from the very flimsy tip, so maybe something like this. Going around the basket. Let's see. I'm probably going to join about here, 0.80 or 0.85 of the length. Right now, just have to double that by 4, and that will give me the natural number of rows that I'm going to get. But for this, let's say I want to get precisely 3 rows and not more. So I'm going to make the join at 3/4. So let's begin. For a classic whaling band, beginning from tip, we'll need 12 weavers. So first I make sure that they begin from the same place, and now I'm going to trim at the tip so that they will all be of the same length, and so that I will not start with the very first tips. One of the weavers was broken, so I just replaced it, and now I'm really going to begin. So I don't need to show the entire process here, right? We already know how to do whaling bands. So I think we can skip ahead to the point in which we have to join. Okay, so I stopped here with one set and here with the other, because this is precisely where I want to make the joins. Now you don't have to make it precise by the exact number of stakes, but I like to do it like this. Feels better to me. So how did I know to stop here? I simply, when I went with this set over the other set, which began here behind this stake, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a group of 6. This is a quarter. And at the 7th, I will make my first join. So I've divided my basket into quarters, right? Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a quarter. And here is where I began another set, right? And the same thing at the other side. So now, to join, since I have, once again, a little bit of leftover length, I might cut off a bit of this new one as well, because otherwise this is going to be thicker than this, where I join, which is not so bad. But more than that, since I want to get precisely 3 rounds, I want to have all weavers in the exact same length. So I won't really cut it right here. I may take a little bit more, something like this perhaps. So here it's not really significant, but sometimes I might have more leftover length, and I will have to cut off the butt end to make the whaling band how I want it. This one is already short, so I'm not going to cut it. And this one I might cut just a little bit. Alright, so now it seems that I got to 3 rows. So I'm simply going to start here. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to finish by threading the ends here, but you don't have to, really. You can just finish on the inside or on the outside, however you want it. I could have actually finished this one before, but it's okay. Now the second set. So this is the finished calculated band of precisely 3 rows. Here I actually have 4 rows, here and here, but I could just stop weaving and finish with the tip ends before I got here. And I don't really mind about that, because those are tip ends and it's hardly noticeable. Yeah, that's it. In this demonstration, I'm actually going to show 2 different things together. First, how to weave a whaling band in an oval basket, as we talked about, but also how to use more than 2 sets, right? We're not going to use 3 sets on an oval basket, so how to use 4 sets. So first thing that we may want to do is to trim the tip ends so that they will be of the same length. This is actually not all of the weavers. I have more weavers. For this we need much more weavers, right? If I need for a regular whaling band 12 weavers, here I need 24, because I'm actually making 2 whaling bands. So I got 24 weavers. First thing we have to do is to measure, right? So let's see if we can start from here and make the join at the right place. I don't know if you can see, but I cannot get to make the join right here. So I'm going to begin from here, and hopefully even this isn't long enough, but I think we'll manage. We said we want to make the joints at the sides, right? So I have to start here. So let's grab 3 weavers, starting the first one here, second one, and third one. If we're using a forward web, we're going to need more weavers for this band, obviously. So the first group, the first set starts here, and the second set starts directly across, right? Let's just stop here for a second and start another set. Alright, so we start the second set here. Alright, let's just weave a little bit. Now, before I get to the other set here, before I go over the beginning here, I'm going to start now the second set, or the third set, you might say. So now I'm going to start directly above the first one, right? This weaver doesn't look so good. Now if I wish to avoid having those two beginnings together, I might insert the end into the weave like that. So in one of the sets I will insert, and the second one will be on the inside. Or maybe I will insert both of them, tuck both the tip ends into the weave. This is also fine. Alright, so let's begin like that, and we began precisely above the first set, right? Now let's stop here. Now here, once again, we're going to add another set. Let's tuck it into the weave as we did before, so that we will not have too many two weavers together, two tip ends here. Alright, same thing. Now we're working with 4 sets, but we started the 4 sets in the same place. Instead of starting in 4 different places, we started in 2 different places. So now I got to this group. Now I will work with this set, and what this gives us, as I said, is we will have the joins only in 2 places in the basket instead of 4 places. Alright, so now I will join here, first one here, then here, or maybe I can weave again. No, it looks more in the middle like this, I think. Alright, so I will join one group here, but before I join, let's progress with this group. And once again, right here. Alright, I want the joints to be in the middle of the side, you might say. Alright, here I have an ugly king, but I think it's fine. Let's progress with the other two sets as well, a little bit, before we join. All right. Let's stop here. Now let's start joining. All right. Have enough here. So now I join. I make the first join to the first group. This one doesn't look so good. Let's put it aside. Hopefully we'll have enough. All right. Let's stop here because I got to this set. Now let's join here. So, as I said, the first thing that we've learned here is where to begin in order to get the joins where we want them. And the second thing is how to work with 4 sets in order to get the joins in 2 places on the basket and not in 4 different places, which will be which will look less good. Now I'm continuing with this group, and once again I'm going to join here. I'm going to join directly above where I joined the first group. This is what I meant by having the joins in 2 places only. Now when you look at the basket from here, from the middle, which is how we usually present oval works, we will not see the joins here. So I joined 1, 2, and 3. Now what is this? Now let's progress with this. A lot of different sets here. It's a little confusing. Once again, I'm going to join here. Alright, now I have to stop weaving because I have another set here. Now we just have to progress with the tip ends until we finish them up. Then we're going to trim those joins and see what it looks like. Now I have to stop here, progress with this set. And I always aspire to finish at the right side of the middle, and if I finish right here, so at the right side here. Alright, then let's progress here with this set. Now this set should finish precisely where the first one had finished. This one's a bit short. Let's see if there's enough room to get in here as well. I could also like tuck one of them into the weave and then the next one to just leave, or perhaps leave the first one just on the inside and then the second one to tuck into the weave, and it will also hold the first one in position. Here I tucked them both in. Alright, now we have two more sets. This one will only get to here, so I'll finish it here. Now, this one's kind of weird. Alright. Now once again, I will thread it together with the previous one. Oops. And this one is too short to be threaded, so we'll just leave it on the inside like that. Alright, so now before we trim, let's do some wrapping. Let's take it off. Alright, so now we'll trim. And 3 more. Now we have the joints at the sides. Let's trim these tip ends here. Here too, this one jumped out. And these 3. One of them is so short that I'm not really sure how I'm going to trim it. Alright, perfect. Now let's see what we got here. Whoa. First of all, in oval work, I will actually prefer to have the minimum amount of whaling, because the more whaling you have, the more you distort the basket. But here, since I wanted to show how to use more than 2 sets, we got a pretty big whaling band. But as a general rule, use the minimum amount of whaling in oval work. So as you can see, the thickness of the band is even all around, right? Everything works out correctly. The joints are here, so now that we look at the basket from here, it looks nice and clean.